Omar Khayyam, the man who measured time. Imagine standing beneath a sky filled with thousands of stars. No telescopes, no satellites, no modern science. Just a man looking up at the heavens nearly 1,000 years ago, trying to understand the secrets of the universe. That man was Omar Khayyam, a poet, a mathematician, an astronomer, a philosopher, and perhaps one of the greatest minds Persia has ever produced. But his story didn't begin among the stars. It began in the ancient city of Nishapur. The year was 1048. Nishapur was one of the most important cities in the Persian world. Its markets were crowded with merchants. Its libraries were filled with scholars. Its streets echoed with conversations about science, philosophy, and faith. And somewhere within this remarkable city, a boy named Omar was born. His full name was Ghiyaf al-Din Abu al-Fath Omar ibn Ibrahim Khayyam Nishapuri, a long and noble name. But the part the world would remember was Khayyam. Interestingly, Khayyam means tent maker. Historians believe that his ancestors may have worked in the craft of making tents. No one could have imagined that the son of a family associated with tent making would one day become one of history's greatest scientists and poets. As a child, Omar was different. While other children played games and chased one another through the streets of Nishapur, he found himself fascinated by questions. Questions that many adults could not answer. Why do the stars move? How does time work? Can numbers explain the universe? And perhaps the biggest question of all, why are we here? The more he learned, the more curious he became. His teachers quickly realized they were teaching an extraordinary student. Books became his closest companions. He studied mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, theology, logic, medicine, literature. Everything fascinated him. The curious boy became a brilliant young scholar. But knowledge alone was never enough for Omar. He wanted to discover truths that nobody else had discovered before. At a time when much of the world was still struggling with basic mathematical concepts, Omar Khayyam was tackling problems that seemed impossible. Among them were cubic equations. Today, a computer can solve these equations instantly. But in the 11th century, they were among the greatest mysteries in mathematics. Many scholars avoided them entirely. Omar did not. Instead, he spent years studying them. Eventually, he developed innovative geometric methods to solve different types of cubic equations using conic sections. It was revolutionary work. Centuries later, mathematicians would recognize just how far ahead of his time he truly was. Word of his brilliance spread throughout Persia, and eventually it reached the court of Sultan Malik Shah, ruler of the mighty Seljuk Empire. The Sultan wanted the greatest minds of the age working for him. And so Omar Khayyam was invited to Isfahan. There, he was given an opportunity unlike anything he had ever imagined. A royal observatory. Night after night, Omar and his team studied the sky. They tracked the movements of the sun, the moon, the planets, the changing seasons. Years of observation led to one extraordinary achievement, the Jalali calendar. a calendar so accurate that many historians still consider it one of the most precise calendars ever created. For Omar, the stars were not merely beautiful objects, they were clues, a giant cosmic puzzle waiting to be solved. Yet, despite all his scientific achievements, Omar was searching for something deeper. Numbers could explain the movement of planets, but they could not explain the human heart. They could not explain love, death, destiny, or the meaning of life. And so Omar turned to philosophy. He questioned everything: the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, the relationship between reason and faith. Unlike many thinkers of his time, he was not afraid to ask difficult questions. Sometimes questions that had no clear answers. And those questions eventually found their way into poetry. Short poems, simple words, but ideas powerful enough to survive for centuries. These poems became known as the Rubaiyat. In them, Omar reflected on life's greatest mysteries. He reminded people that life is brief, that youth fades, that time never stops moving, and that perhaps the greatest mistake we can make is forgetting to appreciate the present moment. For centuries, his poems were loved throughout Persia. But hundreds of years after his death, something remarkable happened. An English writer named Edward Fitzgerald translated many of Khayyam's quatrains into English. Almost overnight, Omar Khayyam became famous across Europe and America. Readers were captivated. Here was a poet from medieval Persia asking questions that felt surprisingly modern. Questions that people still ask today. As the years passed, political turmoil swept across the Seljuk Empire. Royal support for science declined. The great observatory eventually closed, but Omar continued studying, teaching, and writing. He never stopped learning. He never stopped questioning, and he never stopped searching for truth. And she spent most of the last years of her life in her hometown. Finally, in the year 1131, at the age of 83, Omar Khayyam passed away in the city where his story had begun. Centuries later, a magnificent mausoleum would be built over his grave. Designed by the famous Iranian architect Hushang Sehun, the structure combines mathematics, astronomy, and poetry into a single masterpiece. Its geometric patterns reflect the mathematician. Its open design, reaching toward the heavens, reflects the astronomer. And the poems engraved upon it honor the poet. Even today, visitors from around the world travel to Nishapur to stand beside his tomb. May 18th is Khayyam's commemoration day, and his legacy extends far beyond Iran. A statue of Omar Khayyam stands at the United Nations in Vienna, a reminder that knowledge belongs to all humanity. Nearly 1,000 years have passed since Omar Khayyam first looked up at the stars. Yet his questions remain alive, his equations remain studied, his poems remain quoted, and his search for truth continues to inspire millions around the world. Perhaps that is the true measure of greatness. Not how long a person lives, but how long their ideas continue to shine after they are gone.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and support Great Minds of Persia. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories from history. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.